Hey folks, welcome to the Ramble. I wanted to follow up a little bit on a video that I posted last week called How Long Are We Going to Keep Arguing About This? And in that video, I suggested that the process through which we defeat bad ideas is actually a two-step process. We don't just defeat bad ideas by countering them with good ideas. We then have to follow that up with denying platforms to people who push the ideas that we've decided are bad ideas.
Which was a pretty shit idea in itself, mate, and has since been discredited by a ton of YouTubers. Well, guess this is it, Steve. I'll be needing the password for your channel. Can't be having someone with a discredited idea having a platform. Well, fuck me with a frozen rope. I wasn't expecting that. To all those that are coming to this video because this MS Paint trash can appeared in your sub box, cheers! I've enjoyed reading your comments and responding, and I think you're all legendary. 40 subscribers isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's a lot to me, and I feel swag money balling. Anyway, down to business. Steve Shives has made another video basically shitting all over free speech, and I've got some thoughts on it that I'd like to share with you, and hopefully Steve if he actually watches it. I'm sure he does, really. I'm sure he's just lying. I'm sure he does, cheeky, on the side. Come on, Steve, admit it. Admit it, mate.
One of the most common objections to that argument is to ask, well, who's going to make these decisions? Who decides what is a bad idea? Who decides who gets a platform and who doesn't? It's the appeal to the gray area, the appeal to ambiguity, the argument that says, well, outlawing hate speech might sound like a good idea at first, but how do we determine what speech is hate speech? And they don't really have an answer. They don't really have any idea how to do that. Their point is you just shouldn't bother trying to solve the problem at all.
No, Steve. I just think it's down to the individual to accept when they're wrong, and not down to your subjective opinion. Look, if you want to convince someone of your point of view, you have to be the one to persuade them. You can't just try and demonise them by saying, well, if you don't agree with me, then you're just an ish, pushing an ism, and you're probably a Nazi. If you're trying to convince someone of something, and consistently failing, it's worth re-evaluating your own opinions sometimes. Newsflash, we're all against Nazis. We're all against racism. We just disagree on what Nazism is and what racism is. Sometimes we're fucking right too.
And just don't try to regulate it. Don't try to deal with it at all. Just keep your hands completely off. Because if there's going to be certain times when you won't be sure what the right decision is, then you should just don't make any decisions about anything. It's a stifling tactic. It's a suppression tactic. It's a way of saying, oh, don't stop trying to solve this problem. You'll never find a perfect solution, so just stop trying to solve the problem.
I kind of can't believe you're saying that advocating for free speech is a stifling tactic. Surely the polar opposite is true.
The point isn't to take the decisions of who gets a platform and who doesn't, or what speech or what ideas are good and what ideas are bad, away from those entities that are making those decisions now and put them into the hands of different entities. The point is to encourage those making those decisions now to make different decisions.
Yeah, exactly. But the way to do that is to convince them with legitimate facts and logic. Not to just strip away all of their platforms and make them voiceless. Telling someone they can't do something won't have the effect that you think it will, Steve. People won't neatly fit into your little sheep pen. Who the fuck is going to think, oh, well, I'm not allowed to talk about those ideas. Might as well just believe what you say then. Look, to believe someone, to trust their judgment and idea, it's kind of an emotion, isn't it? Trust is an emotion. So to an extent, it isn't just about facts and rules even. It's also a little bit about persuasion. Coercion has failed pretty much every time in history as a means of convincing people of one man's idea.
So if we're talking about a person who, let's say a person who is invited to address a group at a college, and let's say that this person who has been invited is a figure who, I don't know, just to pull an example out of the clear blue sky, someone who has a history of harassing transgender students at the college from the stage, or threatening to reveal personal information about students at the college who may be from undocumented immigrant families. Just pulling examples out of the air.
Jesus, that is a random example. And it's so obvious you're not firing shots at anyone in particular, Steve. Well done on staying impartial, mate. This is why people don't like your ideas, Steve. You come up with a concept and then alienate around 50% of an audience because you can't keep your personal emotion out of it.
And let's say that such a person was invited by a student group, say the college Republicans, just pulling things out of the sky here, to address their group or to participate in some event. And let's say that there are some students in that college community who think that that is a terrible decision and they don't want that person to be invited to their campus to talk. They don't want their college to be a part of giving this person a platform because this person has a history of being abusive and this person says things that are racist and misogynist and anti-feminist and xenophobic because this person has a history of being abusive and this person says things that are racist and misogynist and anti-feminist and xenophobic and just hateful and hurtful and terrible.
Shit, he's finally said it. Being anti-feminist is now officially on par with racism. Telling women they are equal, reminding them that they do have all the same legal rights as men, and letting them know that the wage gap is a manipulation of the result of free choice in order to create a falsely sinister picture, that is on the same level as racism. Steve Shives deluded confirmed.
They don't want such a person to be welcomed on their campus, and they don't want their ideas to be granted anything like an air of legitimacy on their campus.
Because this man is a bigot.
Yeah, what kind of statements does, in your opinion, or things that he does that show that bigotry to you?
Well, see, this is my first time actually hearing of him.
Steve, if you never listen to others' ideas, how the fuck can you know what they're really all about? You know my name, not my story, Steve. God.
One of the most common responses from people to arguments like the ones I made in that "How long are we going to keep arguing about this" video is to say, well, but if someone's invited to a venue, then they have a right to go. If someone was invited to address the college Republicans at such and such university, they have a right to go. Yes, they do, as long as the terms of their invitation stand. It's not an absolute right. If you were invited to address the college Republicans, let's just say, at such and such university, and then the college Republicans change their mind, or the university steps in and says, whoa, we don't want this to happen, or the people in charge of the venue that you were going to hold the event at change their minds and say, no, we don't want any part of it, then you don't have a right.
The group that invited Milo didn't rescind the invitation, Steve. The fuckheads who disagreed with Milo and had no interest in going to the event rescinded the invitation, just because someone like you told them he was a Nazi or some dumb shit.
And it is completely within the rights of other people in the community who heard about that invitation to come forward and say to the group, hey, I think you made a mistake. I think you should reconsider. I think you should pull back that invitation. I don't think this person should be coming here.
Imagine if someone you agreed with was scheduled to speak to a bunch of uni students, and a bunch of Trump supporters went to that event and smashed windows, acted like complete wankers, and had the guest speaker rushed off over concerns for his safety. Reckon you'd still think that, well, obviously people didn't like the idea, it must be discredited in that case. Better reevaluate my position. Bet you wouldn't, you cheeky bastard.
Whoever's decision it is, it's still ultimately their decision. And I am certainly not advocating that it not be their decision. All I'm saying is, I think that they should make a different decision. I think they should make what I would call a better decision.
Well, tough shit. World doesn't revolve around you, Buttercup.
I know for myself personally, because another thing that folks like to say is, because they like to accuse people who make the argument that I made of being authoritarian, as though I want to personally make all these decisions myself. And that is not the case. People are entitled to make their own decisions about the venues that they control. But I will say this, if it were my decision, if I did have control over a venue, or I was a member of an organization and I had a voice in the decision-making process to decide who got invited to address the organization and who didn't, I would strenuously object and do whatever I could within my abilities, within my powers, to prevent people who are pushers of racism and misogyny and anti-feminism and xenophobia and transphobia and homophobia.
People argue that if I could make all the decisions, I would try to ban anyone I disagree with. That's a load of bollocks. But if I could make all the decisions, I'd try to ban everyone I disagree with. I don't think he does much else but repeat himself now, so I'm stopping it there. Steve, when I started YouTube about a month ago, I wanted to come in with no preconceptions of people based on what had happened before I started making videos. But this video, and the last video on the topic, has demonstrated to me exactly what kind of person you are and what you're really about. Maybe one day you'll see the light and consider other people's opinions. Take care of yourself, and hopefully I'll see you all soon.